Hi, everyone. Just before we get into today's episode, a quick thank you to Altitude Sports for sponsoring this week's show. When you're training seriously, you don't want to waste time tracking down gear. Altitude Sports is a Canadian-based company in Montreal, and their online store makes it super easy to find exactly what you need. They carry over 400 top brands like Hoka, Asics, New Balance, Salomon, plus tech and gear from Garmin, Ciel, and more. Shipping is next day across Canada, even same day in Montreal. And returns? Super easy. No printer needed, just scan the QR code they send you. You can use the promo code SHAKEOUT to get up to 20% off on your first order. Conditions apply. You'll find all the details and the link in the episode description. Hello and welcome back to a special episode of The Rundown brought to you by the Shakeout Podcast. With the national championships in Canada now behind us, we are looking ahead to the World Championships next month in Tokyo, Japan. And this is a time of year that I like to refer to as silly season, as all of those athletes still looking for one of those coveted qualifying positions are running all over the world looking for either some much needed bonus points or that elusive World Championship standard. Here to break down the prospects for the Canadian track and field contingent representing us in Tokyo next month is Canadian running staff writer Marley Dickinson. Marley, you were at those championships in Ottawa just a week and a half ago, provided some fantastic coverage of some of the stars of our sport as they prepare for the World Championships. What were some of the highlights for you from the Canadian trials in Ottawa?
Yeah, no, it was a very exciting 4-day event there in Ottawa. It was awesome to see so many big stars step up, and I think there was a little bit of a changing of the guard we saw, not only in the sprints, but also in middle distance. You know, we saw a lot of athletes either return to being national champion or first-time national champions in general. So I think there was a lot to get started on, but I think no better place to start than probably two of the big stars from the weekend is Ethan Katzberg and Canada's newest fastest man, Jerome Blake.
Yeah, both huge wins. Ethan, a little bit less of a surprise. He is, of course, the reigning world champion and Olympic champion in the men's hammer throw and showed no signs of slowing down with another dominant performance at the trials. That does seem like a great place for us to dive in. We're going to touch a little bit more on the sprints later on in the episode and the ascendancy of Jerome Blake as the new top dog in the men's 100 and 200 meter. But let's start with some of those field events, including the hammer throw. It's important that we start by pointing out that the new World Athletics system favors returning champions, and we are very fortunate right now to be living in an era where Canada has produced multiple world champions of note in the last couple of years, and those athletes get an automatic wildcard bye into those world championships. Ethan, of course, one of them in the men's hammer throw. On the women's side, Cameron Rogers, also the reigning world and Olympic champion. So those two athletes locked in, ready for the world champs to defend their golden crowns. No surprises from our national championships. They both walked away with easy victories, and they will be joined in Tokyo in the hammer ring by Jillian Weir and Rowan Hamilton, who are both also sitting comfortably within the world ranking quotas. So two world championships returning. They've got a lock, and they're bringing company with them back to the hammer throw ring at the World Championships. What are some of the other locks that we've got going in? Some reigning world champs that are already on the team for Tokyo next month.
Well, staying in the field and on the track, looking at Pierce Lepage. I mean, he's been a little quiet since he won, his first world title there in 2023. He didn't appear in Paris because he was undergoing a back surgery. He's overcoming that. So that kept him off the team, but he's getting back to form a little bit this year. He competed in a few events at nationals in the long jump and the discus, and was able to reach the podium in both those categories. But I think he's still trying to get back to that form that he was seeing a little bit in 2023. Should be an interesting World Championships for him. I mean, he's in the prime of his career. It's just, I think the biggest thing for him, if he can stay healthy and put up some good numbers, I think he's going to be a tough guy to leave off the podium. But I think the way we've seen the decathlon move after Paris is there's a lot of new guys that are kind of coming up onto the scene. There's going to be a lot of competition. I think we can expect one of the most competitive decathlons in Tokyo that we've seen in a while. But you also can't leave off The guy who won the decathlon last time it was in this national stadium in
That's
Tokyo,
right.
Damian Warner. I mean, can you believe the guy? He's I think he's 36 and
Turning
he's
36 this year.
still powering through. I saw him run the 110 hurdles there at nationals, and he absolutely destroyed. And to see him just like go through, that's one of the gotta be one of the hardest events in track and field. And for him to do that and like still be competing at a high level, it's nothing but inspiring.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think a very cool storyline for Canada in the decathlon, of course, with the reigning world champ in Pierce LePage. He comes in with a wild card berth that he has needed every minute of, every week of, in order to get himself healthy so that he can return. That's been a boon for him. It's come maybe at the expense of Damian Warner because at those last World Championships in 2023 in Budapest, he was, of course, the runner-up to Pierce LePage. Canada went 1 and 2 on the podium in Budapest, and had it not been for Lepage's incredible performance, Warner would have been the one with that wild card.
He's done the Olympic champion. He's won indoors. It's the one thing that's kind of like eluded him his entire career. And I think there's a part of him that still thinks he can do it, and that's the inspiring thing. Is he knows he can be there. He knows he can do it. But I think the biggest thing for him is you can't count him out because he's pretty much good at every single event. I mean, you got to be to win a decathlon, right? But the biggest thing for Damien is all his great events are on day one.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get through day one feeling healthy and 100% going into day two, we could definitely see him in contention late and see, a similar Damien performance that we saw in Tokyo when he put up a score of, 9,000, right?
Canada goes in with arguably the two most talented decathletes in the world right now, but also possibly the two most fragile at the international level. And when they've been at their best, we've seen them push one another to absolutely electric performances. And we're hoping that they can repeat on those top two flights of the podium, but it will come down to whether they can both push each other and stay healthy in the process. On the topic of pushing each other, there's no event, in my opinion, right now that is going to be more tightly contested internationally than the men's 800 meter. We have just seen an incredible explosion since that Olympic final last year in men running in the 141s and 142s. Times that seem to only ever come around every 5 or 6 seasons are now being run with some regularity, and that makes it a very interesting and difficult path to repeat as world champion for Canada's own Marco Arop, who rounds out our list of defending world champions. Marley, what have you seen in the men's 8 this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely become a lot more of a level playing field than what we've seen over the past couple of years. I mean, for the past 2 years, it seemed like every race was either Marco Arop or Kenya's Emmanuel Wanioni. But, there's so many upcoming 800-meter talent. I think the reason why they're like the level that Arop and Wanioni are running at has elevated everyone around them. I mean, there's 14 athletes that have run sub 143 this season, which is, I mean, that time, 5 years ago, if you said that stat, I mean, people wouldn't believe you.
Yeah, you'd
So
be
I
a
think
lock as the world champion.
exactly. So it's kind of hard to believe, and I think the biggest thing in this men's 800 meter is going to be who can survive the rounds and who can run fast across 5 days. They're going to have to run probably between 145 or under 145 3 times within 5 days. So if you can keep your body fresh and healthy and be able to do that and have still put up a performance of 141 in that final, then I think, that's going to be the person that's champion. I know it sounds easier said than done, but it's just the depth of 800 meter running right now. People can run 142 on a dime from the percent we pulled up, but can they do it 3 days? Like
Three rounds in a row.
People can run 143 on a dime, but can they do it 3 times in 5 days?
And we've seen Marco preparing this year for the challenge of racing back to back to back hard 800s. Earlier in the year, he was racing far more over distance events. He's lowered his personal best in the 1500 to 335. He even ran a half marathon last fall. So it appears that he is working on the strength element of his running to make sure that he's not only getting to that World Championship final, but getting there with enough left in the tank to outrun guys like Donovan Brazier, the resurgent former world champion who's come back from the grave this year out of the U.S., fellow American Cooper Lutkenhaus, the 16-year-old phenom, and of course the reigning Olympic champion Wanyoni, who does own a 10-5 record against Marco. One of those losses, of course, was at the 2023 World Championships, where Marco did get the best of him and won that world title. So we know he can get it done on the world stage, and we will be looking for him to repeat and hold on to that crown once again.
I feel like this whole season for Marco has been testing himself and seeing what his body is capable of, because it's all about defending his world title. And I know, him and Wayne Yoni seem like they're friends on the track, but they're complete gamers. They have so much respect for one another, and they know that they need to push one another to kind of chase David Rudisha's great 800-meter record of 140.91 from the London 2012 Olympics.
Marco's PB, a reminder, 141.20, so less than a half second to go for that world record. And in some ways fortunate to exist in a time when he has a peer in Wanyoni and they can push each other. And this could be the year that we see that world record, which has stood now for 13 plus years, finally fall. And it's likely to do so, if anywhere, at those World Championships. Staying with the middle and long distance events, let's shift to some of the other athletes that are already confirmed. Of course, the really long distances get a little bit of extra time to prepare for these championships. Athletics Canada announced its off-track and 10,000 meter team earlier in the year at the beginning of June. Headlining the long distance contingent, as always, Mo Ahmed. He is once again confirmed for the 10,000 meter. He returns to Tokyo, the site of his Olympic silver medal in the 5,000 4 years ago. But for the first time in many years, there's some asterisks around Mo Ahmed as we head into these world championships.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate, what has happened to him in the past sort of 12 months. I mean, going back to Paris, he had that 10,000. I think that left so many Canadians heartbroken for him when, Grant Fisher dipped him at the line for fourth. And then in the spring, trying to debut in the half marathon, and then he had Achilles kind of flare up. And the injuries are kind of continuing to plague Ahmed late in his career here, as, in the 5,000 at Nationals, he, was ready to kind of get the wheels turning on the final lap and had his calf kind of flare up, and he ended up having to walk off the track with a calf strain on his left side. There's a lot of uncertainty for him, for that happening 5-6 weeks out from Tokyo, where you've had these standards for upwards of 11-12 months now, and been preparing for this championships, and now to have kind of uncertainty of how fit you're going to be into these championships. I just don't know. I just don't know how you deal with that mentally. But I mean, he's one of the best runners in the world for a reason.
The other piece that may be worth mentioning, he is qualified as well in the 5,000. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him prioritize one of those events over the other. He's historically always done the double. The 10,000 remains the event that's eluded him. He has a brace of international medals at the 5K, but he has said in the past that he believes the 10,000 is his better distance, and yet he's yet to find that elusive global medal. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see him pick one or the other. If I were picking, I would be leaning towards the 10,000 based on his history with that event and the near misses. I think that adds the fuel to the fire for him to push through and hopefully use those years of motivation to finally break through.
I agree with you. I think the 10, he knows this too. The 10 is kind of built out for him. It's that long endurance test where you need sort of that final strong, hard sort of like 2 laps, right?
Yeah.
And he's been able, he kind of showed us that in Paris, that he has sort of that strength to be there at the last second. But I think there's a lot of major players missing too in the 10, and the 10 is so open for him.
World and Olympic champion Joshua Cheptegei has already stated he will not be defending his title this year, instead focusing on the marathon later in the season. So it is wide open as it's ever going to be for Mo to take a shot at that first world title and his first 10,000 medal. Speaking of the marathon, another event group where Canada has already announced its team. No surprises on the marathon side of things. Veterans across the board, all of them with at least one world championship appearance, many of them with several, including Olympic Games. On the women's side, of course, leading the way is the national record holder Natasha Wodak, followed by the previous national record holder Melindy Elmore, and making it a trio of BC-based athletes, Leslie Sexton. While on the men's side, another national record holder in Cam Levins. He'll be joined by 2021 Olympian and multiple-time world championship team member Ben Priesner, and Justin Kent, who ran a big PB just a few months ago, his first time under the elusive 2:10 barrier. So strong teams on both the men's and women's side. From all that we've seen, their training and preparation is going well. It will be a very hot and hilly course in Tokyo in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be an exciting test this weekend. Canadian Half Marathon Championships in Edmonton. I know a lot of them are planning to be there and on the race as a sort of tester before the big day in September. It's also crazy that they're all BC-based athletes.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is kind of hard to come by on a marathon team. But I guess it says something about the BC climate.
Yeah, it's that West Coast weather. Although this is the one time a year and this is the one type of race, hot, humid conditions in East Asia, where I think some of them might be wishing for those soupy Ontario summers. So hopefully they're doing their preparation other ways to prepare for the heat. I know that they're also preparing for the hills. A different course than we've seen run in Tokyo before, and should be an interesting one, as those World Championship marathons always are. Moving on now to some of the other locks for this team. They haven't been officially announced yet. That will happen at the end of August once the qualifying window officially closes, but these are a group of athletes who we can say with almost entire certainty will be representing Canada once again at the World Championships. Tough to start any discussion of locks or of medal threats without mentioning Sarah Mitten. She is the two-time reigning world indoor champion. She had a difficult and disappointing showing in Paris last year, qualifying first for the final before falling to 12th in that final in the women's shot put. I don't think there's any athlete who's more hungry to add a world title to their resume than Mitten. Like we said, a championship performer. She's already done this twice before indoors with 2 world indoor titles. I think this might be the year where we see her add that outdoor gold to her trophy case.
Yeah, I'm kind of scared of anyone who's in Sarah Mitten's way. You know, she seems like she's on a wrecking ball. Straight for the gold medal. I know after Paris last year, she was pissed. You know, a lot over the last 12 months has gone towards this big day in Tokyo. And I think, I might take a little vocabulary out of her East Coast playbook here, but I think she's damn fired up to get it kicked off and get competing against some of the best in the world.
There are very few people who are fiercer competitors than the Nova Scotia product, Sarah Mitten. Another lock for the team in terms of qualifying world ranking, but a little bit more of a question mark based off of recent performance, is Alicia Newman, reigning bronze medalist from the Olympics last year in Paris in the women's pole vault. Marley, what have you seen, or maybe what have you not seen from Newman this year?
I think it's more of what we haven't seen. I mean, she hasn't competed really much this year and hasn't jumped since the end of May. She was listed as a DNS, do not start, at Nationals. Pulled out of that. I know she's been spending a lot of time off the track, working with Bolton Pole Vault. So she's setting up this new training center just outside of the GTA here for the future generation and to kind of leave a legacy. I think she said, after last year of what it all brought, and getting the Olympic bronze medal, which was so rewarding in her career, that she knew she needed a little bit of a break from competing. I didn't expect the break to go this long, and I'm wondering if there's something else that is kind of plaguing her in terms of getting to competition, because I feel like pole vault's an event that you want to make sure that you're jumping at a certain height or rep before you get to the big stage, right?
Yeah, getting your reps in.
I am a little worried. But I know Newman's a gamer, and I've seen her obviously put some big performances on the board without some bigger jumps early in the season. So
Yeah, I think, like you say, she is a gamer, and we will look to see her elevate when the bright lights are on her. She's always been a big time performer, and I think that Tokyo has the potential to bring out the very best in her. She knows she can compete with the best in the world, and as you mentioned, coming off of that Olympic medal and all of the fanfare that comes with that, maybe stepping away from competition early in the season is exactly what she needs to feel fresh and focused for this long push. These championships are taking place very late into the year. They don't begin until the middle of September. So I think many athletes do run the risk of burning out as they get closer to those championships, particularly if they've been pushing hard early in the season. Someone who has been pushing hard but shows no signs of slowing down, however, and the final member of Canada's women's field contingent is the ascending star in the discus circle, Julia Tunks. What did you see from her at Nationals, Marley?
oh my gosh, a star in the making. She is she's not only cool, calm, and collected, but she can definitely huck a disc pretty far as well. She's currently sitting well into the qualification zone, and she should again lock up one of those spots. At 19, she'll be one of the youngest members of Team Canada in Japan. I'm really excited to kind of see her blossom. Again, she's cool, calm, and collected, and doesn't see a moment as too big for her. So I think she'll kind of like step into the big stage and throw a big performance when the people around her are also throwing big throws. She's the daughter of two Olympians as well, so that must prepare her for something.
Yeah, the family history is there. It's not going to be afraid of a moment like this, knowing that the folks have been there and done that. And like you say, the youngest member of Team Canada, so we will look for her to make a statement this year, but also set the tone for many years to come. A new wave of throwing in this country, which is exciting to look at. Keeping on the women's side, but moving now to the track, we have had a heated battle in the women's 100. It's safe to say that we've entered a new golden era of short sprints on the women's side in Canada, and any conversation of that new era can't start without mentioning Audrey Leduc, who came out of the gates flying this year. She's run personal bests already this season, building on the success that she had last year, where she was the breakout star of Canadian sprinting, but hot on her heels, and in fact challenging her and at times eclipsing her with the Canadian record, has been Sade McCreath. Talk us through a little bit of that rivalry and how they're pushing each other to this new level that we haven't seen before in women's sprinting.
I think it's great. I think for so long, the men's side of sprinting has been obviously well known on the world stage in Canada, but now we're having two women on the international level just like pushed themselves back and forth. And I think Sade has like this mentality where she brings up the rivalry and turns up the heat when it matters most. And I think we saw that at nationals. We've seen her trade the national record this season back and forth.
10:95, now 10:94, both of them dipping under 11 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I've just been loving what I'm seeing from McCreath this season, and I think that'll probably continue in Tokyo. I can see that. I personally think the Canadian record will fall once again. Just because, again, I think the international level of sprinting and of what everyone else is running, it's gonna probably take a sub 10.9 to get yourself into that semifinal. I think, to reach a semifinal, you're gonna have to be running sort of 10.8 something. And I think we've really seen Sade McCreath and Audrey Leduc step up their game this year and be running these fast times. And I think Leduc just seems like she's a lot more confident. She knows what to expect now. I think after that first full season, and last year was a lot. I mean, she came from competing at a youth sports level to being, at an Olympic semifinal. That's a crazy, transition of going from these small university gyms to possibly the world's biggest stage. So I think, now with a year kind of under her wing, that she's able to kind of embrace everything and have a little bit more of understanding of the competition side of it and how to go in and meet fresh and feeling not too overwhelmed about something. I know she sets high standards for herself. I mean, I spoke to her. I remember speaking to her 6 months before Paris, and she was like, "I want to be on that Olympic team." And I'm like, "Oh, you just want to use sports, like let's settle down here." But I don't think her level surprised anyone last year. I mean, she was transcending to new heights in Canadian sprinting, and I think we'll see her continue to kind of like push those limits in Tokyo.
Yeah, absolutely. They enter the women's 100 meter at the World Championships, currently ranked 19th and 20th. That is Audrey Leduc and Sade McCreath, respectively. You mentioned Olympic semifinalists and surprise Olympic semifinalists. That brings us to the 200. Leduc also sitting in a comfortable qualifying position. But on the outside looking in is fellow Paris semifinalist Jacqueline Madogo. She made it all the way to that semifinal last year in Paris, running huge lifetime bests along the way, but she's currently outside of the world ranking quota. And I think that brings us to a big talking point that's going to carry through a lot of this discussion as we move ahead, and that is the upcoming NACAC championships, North American, Central American, and Caribbean championships. They take place this coming weekend, August 15th to 17th in Grand Bahama, Bahamas. And for our listeners who would like to tune in, those are the area championships for, as the name suggests, North America, Central America, and the Caribbean. And they provide really the last opportunity for many of these athletes who have yet to secure a world ranking position for the championships to gain some much needed bonus points. Area championship points on the line. Those are potentially season changing for an athlete like Jacqueline Madogo. If she can find her way onto the podium, that could slingshot her into a qualifying position for those world championships. So how important do you think that NACAC championship will be for an athlete like her?
I mean, it's going to be essential for every athlete that's going, especially someone sort of in Jacqueline's position. You know, the thing that matters most at these championships isn't so much the time, it's the place score. If Jacqueline is able to get herself in the final and get herself on the podium, she could be looking at, you know, potentially a time and point score that is equivalent to running like a standard. So it'll shoot her up into the quota out of the rankings, so she's able to get closer to selection. So I think for Jacqueline this year, I know she's gotten a little bit of a slower start to the season, coming off the Olympics last year. So I think she's rounding into form a little bit, and I think we'll see, you know, a good performance from her in Grand Bahamas this weekend and solidify her spot on that team.
Looks like pretty ideal conditions for those shorter explosive events. Should be warm and balmy in Grand Bahama. Speaking of those shorter explosive events and the qualifying repercussions of NACAC, the women's 400 right now in Canada, a lot going on. The national champion in that event from just a week and a half ago, Savannah Sutherland, will not be contesting the 400 at the World Championships because she is a reigning Olympic finalist in the 4 hurdles. She'll be opting for her primary event with the hurdles in Tokyo, but she did lead the way at those Canadian Championships in Ottawa and pulled along some of the stalwarts of the women's 4x4 program, particularly Lauren Gale and Zoe Shurar, who will be at the NACAC Championships this coming weekend. Talk us through a little bit of what they need to do in order to punch their ticket as individuals. The women's 4x4, of course, already pre-qualified, but for the individual 400, there's a few names swirling right now that are either just on the inside or on the outside looking in to that world ranking quota.
The 400 meter running in Canada, you know, there's a lot of depth in it right now. At nationals, when I saw Savannah in the field, I was like, okay, she's gonna get everyone to run faster. But I mean, that wasn't normally the case. Savannah did have a fast time, but you know, I think Lauren Gale and Joe Shurar just needed to kind of take that next step to get into the low 51s. And now their performance will have to rely a little bit more on this NACAC championships. They're currently right on the bubble in terms of the world ranking quota, but there's also someone else in the mix. You know, there's Diana Proctor. She ran at University of Guelph this year and was able to put up some decent results earlier on this season to get herself into that sort of point range where she's sitting just close to the quota. So I think all these athletes will need sort of that strong showing at NACACs to get them into the rankings. And like we said with Jacqueline Madogo, it's going to have to be not only a good placing in the final, it's going to probably have to be a quick time as well to really get their position locked up.
Yeah, running the quick time and backing it up with ideally some podium points from the NACAC championships. That women's 400 meter standard is 50.75. Savannah Sutherland, the only Canadian right now under that mark, and she will of course be contesting the 4 hurdles. Let's take a moment to talk about her path back to a global final in the 4 hurdles. She lowered her lifetime best earlier this year, ran a NCAA record, no small feat, in order to win a second successive NCAA title with the University of Michigan. She comes in having run the 9th fastest time in world history in the 4 hurdles. Are we on medal watch with Savannah Sutherland in that event this year?
I'd be lying if I didn't say yes. I think for her last year in Paris was kind of a realization of her potential, and I think with Sydney McLaughlin Levrone missing from the 400-meter hurdles in Tokyo this year, opting to do the 400 meters instead. I think that opens up 2 podium spots, and Savannah has really shown her form this year, and she's turned into a pros pro, and I think it'll be interesting to see kind of her matchup against Femke Bol, and it's exciting as well. And she's pretty young, just a solid emerging talent. I think she's 22, so just emerging into this professional athlete. She just turned pro a few months ago with Adidas, and she's going to be racing on the world stage. It's really exciting too, as a Canadian track and field fan, to have an athlete in one of the most competitive contested events over the past half decade,
Just to be competing against the likes of global superstars Sydney McLaughlin Levrone and Femke Bol, 2 of the highest profile athletes in our sport, and Sutherland has made a very strong argument thus far this year that she belongs in that conversation moving forward.
I think for her, obviously the goal is to reach that final. But I think her A goal is to be on that podium, and I think that's what she knows she's capable of, especially coming off the dominant NCAA season she had, where she won her second NCAA title in the 4 hurdles. She's emerging into this star, and I think a lot of Canadian track and field fans will see her talent this summer and fall in love with her running style.
Moving now to the men's sprint events. Some of our savvy listeners may be surprised to not have heard the name that is really one-on-one associated with Canadian track and field, has been now for about a decade. Andre De Grasse, we've yet to mention him. He didn't make our list of locks for this World Championship team. Marley, what's been going on with the face of Canadian track and field, the multiple-time Olympic medalist and reigning 4x1 Olympic gold medalist, Andre De Grasse?
All right, well, we need to slam on the brakes quick. We don't need to worry too much. I mean, he's got his spots in Tokyo locked up. He's got the standard in the 100 from last year, and in the 200 he sits well inside the quota, so there should be no problem. But
He'll be there.
He hasn't had the best of season. He was missing in nationals a few weeks ago because of a hamstring issue flared up during the last couple of days of training. He said to the media, it's nothing serious, and that he just wanted to be a little bit cautious, obviously, with what's ahead. He will be attending NACACs as well to kind of get that pre-race tune-up going before Worlds. So I think that will be a big stage for him. I think that'll be, people will be looking on him there to be like, okay, well, what Andre De Grasse are we going to get? Are we going to get, the Olympic champion, sub 20, 200 meter, sub 10, sub 20, 200 meter guy? Or are we going to get, the Andre that we've seen so far this season, which has been kind of like lackluster performances, him kind of slow getting out of the blocks and not being able to kind of keep up with the rest of the competition. But I think, NACACs will be huge. And I know Andre is very critical on when he does race. He's not going to show up to a meet if he's not 100%. So I think, he sees these NACAC championships as a major stage to, not only get on the podium, but also prepare for these championships and race against some top level talent before the big dance.
Yeah, a trend kind of emerging here, much like his fellow Tokyo Olympic champion from 2021, Damian Warner. He returns to the site of his Olympic gold medal, his, of course, coming in the 200 meter. And we've just seen time and time again that he's someone like Damian who you bet against at your peril. He has a ability to turn it on when it matters most. These NACAC championships will be telling, but ultimately, we expect to see the very best version of him a month from now in Tokyo. Speaking of the best version of Canadian sprinting on the men's side currently, tough to argue that it's anyone aside from Kelowna, BC's Jerome Blake. We had him on the show a couple of weeks ago in the lead up to the Canadian Championships. He has been the breakout star in both the 100 and the 200 meter this year. Marley, what have you seen? What are you excited about from Jerome as we head towards a world championship where he's now qualified individually for the first time in both the 100 and the 200?
Everything. No, I mean, it's hard not to love Jerome Blake. If you've ever seen him compete, his energy, his personality, and the way he sprints, it's infectious. He is having the season of his career. Obviously, breaking 10 and breaking 20 for the 100 and 200. I'm joining, a list of less than 10 men that have accomplished each feat. I know for the 200, it's even less than that. And the 100, I think it's 6 or so. So I mean,
sixth 100 man and fourth in the 200, and an even smaller list when you look at athletes who have done both.
I'm really excited to see him race in Tokyo, and I think he'll be kind of an underdog as well. I mean, he's run a lot of these races not at big events. Like his run at nationals, came after he was disqualified at the 100 for a false start.
Yeah,
and then he came to the 200 and kind of did a mic drop in the 200 meter final.
Total statement race,
running 9:95.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
then his 100 meter time came at a small meet in Germany.
Yeah, he has been flying under the radar, but in conversations that we've both had with him, that confidence is apparent. He knows that he can compete with the best in the world, and the World Championships will be that opportunity for him to put paid to what he's been saying all year, which is that he thinks he can not only compete with the best, but beat the best. And he's shown that already with some of his performances thus far this year, beating Letsile Tebogo, the reigning Olympic silver medalist in the 200 meter head-to-head last month in 100 meter. So we will be looking very closely at Jerome's progression. He, of course, also running at NACAC this weekend, looking for a final tune-up, but don't be surprised to see a podium performance there as a bit of a springboard towards bigger things to come.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to that. I am curious though to know. I mean, what's his better event right now? I mean, I think it's just like anything he touches is hot, and he looked great over the 200 on nationals. So I'm excited to see what he can do, and I think NACAX is going to be sort of that coming out party for him.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's tough to pick between the two. The way he looked in the 200 and his history coming from a background of long sprinting, I wouldn't be surprised if the 200 is where he has even more room to grow. He'll, of course, be joined at those World Championships by the veteran of this team in his 7th World Championship appearance, 7th consecutive, doing it even one better, Mr. Aaron Brown. Just the picture of consistency and clutchness for well over a decade now. He, of course, also ran under the automatic qualifying standard with his performance at the Canadian Championships last week, 20.08. In the 200, he is one of the 4 men who has eclipsed the 20-second barrier in Canadian history. Seems like he is rounding into form at the right time, as he is so wont to do in this long career of his.
Yeah, he's quite a journeyman. Even when I looked it up at nationals after he ran the standard and the 2, I was like, how many world championships have you been to, man? I swear I was watching this guy run when I was in high school.
Yeah,
I mean it's nothing but impressive, and I think for him, all the sprinters in Canada speak on his legacy and just the information he's given the rest of the guys and elevated Canadian sprinting as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. He has been a leader of what has been in recent years a very dominant and very consistent men's sprint program in this country. A lot of those guys can look to Aaron as a mentor and someone who has shepherded them through their first world championship, first Olympic experiences, a guy who's been through the ringer time and time again. One of those other names that we haven't mentioned yet, but very much at the core of Canada's recent success in the sprints, particularly its string of global medals in the relay, is Brendan Rodney. He was an integral piece of that golden 4x1 team last year. We haven't seen a whole lot from him this year. He withdrew from the Canadian Championships. He started racing again after a several-month hiatus. Just this week, he's back in Europe, chasing down that standard. But he's someone who, for the first time in many years, we aren't seeing in World Championship form yet. What are his prospects looking like, Marley?
Yeah, I know he intended on running at Canadian Nationals, but ended up not running due to, again, some tightness. But I think it's going to be a situation that the window for him is a little bit, it's closing too soon, and I think injury kind of plagued him earlier on in the season, which has kind of left it to be a little bit too late. But the biggest thing for Rodney is, the relay. And I think that's going to be an interesting conversation. Kind of moving forward for Athletics Canada and head coach Glenroy Gilbert is Brendan fit enough to run his third leg on the 4x100 meter relay? I mean, there's a lot of up and coming Canadian talent. I mean, we saw Dwayne Asamoah from Ontario throw down that crazy 100-meter celebration.
Yeah, the new national champion.
Nationals.
Yeah, it could be the moment for a changing of the guard. We are seeing guys like Brendan Rodney, not necessarily in the twilight years of their career, but no longer the youthful presence in the event. The order of the men's 4x1 has been so set in stone for the last number of years, but this could be the year where we see that change, both with the rise of Jerome Blake, who's making a strong case to be moved around in that order based on his recent performance, his bend running. He could be someone that could swap in for Brendan Rodney, who's always run that third leg around the second bend. And it could be the year where we see Asamoah finally take his place in a World Championship final as part of that quartet. He's been a member of those teams in the relay pool. He's run rounds, but we've yet to see him get the nod for the Global Championship stage when all the chips are on the table. And this could be his year. He certainly made a statement and a strong case for it with that performance winning the 100-meter. Moving up to the last of our men's sprint events, the men's 400-meter, an event that Canada historically has lacked depth in, but we do have one superstar that's shining this year, and that is none other than Christopher Morales-Williams. He burst onto the scene last year while still in college at the University of Georgia, cruised to another national championship this year in Ottawa, and he sits comfortably within the world rankings. He's right now at 18th. His 44.85 season's best actually ties the automatic qualifying time to the 100th of a second. In the case of tying the standard, it's not a less than, it's an equal than system, so he is locked in. We'll look to see him hopefully continue to improve as he cuts his teeth at the international level.
No, totally. He's still got a lot to prove, and he's such a young athlete and a young star. I think people forget he's just a kid. He's spending his time now balancing his life of gaming, being a professional athlete, and school. And I think he's loving it. And I think right now he's just being a young adult before fully hopping into track and field. But I think there's something about these World Championships in Tokyo that really excites him. And I think, as we saw in Nationals, him, run a strong low 45 second time without looking too strenuous, that it's a good sign of things to come.
Yeah, and without really being pushed by anyone else in the field. So hopefully when he gets into that World Championship environment, we will see that next level come out of him, as he has shown time and again that he's capable of doing against the best in the world. Marley, time now to shift to the middle distance events, and this is where things, I think, get the most interesting. There's a lot to unpack, a lot of moving pieces. We've got some rising stars coming through the system in Canada, some athletes that have been veterans of world and Olympic teams for years now, fighting to close out their careers with another appearance on the world stage. Let's start in the middle distances with the women's 800, where we're seeing, I think, a new era. There were so many years of depth in that event where we would have 3, 4, 5 women running the standard each year. and we're in a little bit of a rebuild, as they would say in team sports right now. Take us through what's going on in the women's 8 in Canada right now, Marley.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit of a changing the guard. I think there's a lot of upcoming, university talent that is almost right there, but not quite there. And Jazz Shukla, who represented Canada at the Olympics last year in the 800 meter in Paris. She's had a little bit of a slower start to this season and hasn't been running sort of the same times that she was running last year. She did push herself there at nationals to try to get close to the standard and get herself as much points as possible. But she ultimately got outkicked, in the final 200 meters by this new Canadian talent, Mélisse Trépeau, who was born in France but has moved to Ottawa the last couple of years, and she's currently switching her allegiances from France. It's a little bit tricky, but she also sits ahead of Jazz in the ranking spots. Jazz currently sits 52nd, and Mélisse, she sits 46th.
Of the 56 spots available.
Yeah, so it could complicate things a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
It really depends, though, on when Trépeau's allegiance approval form gets stamped by World Athletics. I talked to AC, and they think it's going to happen before the August 24th window close. But again, it's just a waiting period, and I imagine that both AC and Mélisse are both patiently waiting for her to be approved to compete for Canada, so she could go to the World Championships in Japan. I think it'll be also a shock too for a lot of people that follow Canadian track and field. I think people are going to be like, "Who is this?"
Yeah, and that was certainly my experience watching that 800 meter final as she stormed to victory in the home straight, upsetting Jazz. I think it was the first time they'd ever raced head to head. So it will be interesting to see what that does for the future of the event. Not only this year, but moving forward. A dark horse has emerged that was not on anyone's radars and has given Jazz Shukla, who was seemingly the heir apparent to the women's 800 meter throne in Canada in this new era, a run for her money. And I think hopefully that competition will bring out the best in both athletes. We join with Mélisse and Athletics Canada in crossing our fingers in hopes that her transfer of allegiance gets approved by the deadline in just a few short weeks. And we'll look to see not one, but two women back at the World Championships representing Canada in the awesome. 800. An event where there has been some real depth, and we've had to actually come down to a trial setting at the Canadian Championships where we had more athletes with a qualifying position than there were qualifying spots available on the Canadian team. Of course, a maximum of 3 athletes that Athletics Canada is allowed to take. The women's 1500, we're seeing the rebirth of Gabriella DeBoer-Stafford's career. 2-time Olympian, Canadian record holder, back finally to full health this year and once again running world-class times. She leads the charge in the women's 1500 meter, having already secured the automatic qualifying standard. But behind her, it has been a bit of a toss-up and a dust-up between 3 athletes fighting for those remaining 2 qualifying spots.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's going to be an interesting final sort of 2 weeks here as we lead up to the deadline. All 3 Canadian middle distance 1500 meter runners sit well inside the quota, but only 2 can go.
And so those 3, of course, Simone Plord, Gabriella DeBoer-Stafford's sister, Lucia Stafford, and Kate Current out of London, Ontario. All 3, like you say, in the quota right now, but only 2 of them can make that team at the end of this month.
Yeah, so Gabriella's going to double, and she's voiced that. But I mean, you can't deny how fast Kate Current has been running this season. I mean, she's lowered her personal best 2 or 3 times already. She just ran 4:02 on the day we're recording this podcast in Hungary. So I don't know how AC cannot award her a spot because of just the form she's been in, and she placed 3rd at nationals. Only behind, obviously, Gabriella and Lucia. But there's also Simone Plord, who's trying to make a late charge to get herself ahead of Current and Lucia, to get herself either the standard of 4:01.50 or to get herself into a point spot to to get Athletics Canada to select. So I think, the decision makers at Athletics Canada really have a tricky scenario here. Again, Kate has run 3 of the 4 fastest times between, her, Lucia, and Simone. So it's going to be interesting to see what it comes down to. But I mean, Lucia did beat Kate at nationals, and how much does nationals mean? So it is tricky. It is tricky, and there's going to be someone that has done all the work to be there that's not going to get to be there, which is usually not the case in a lot of Canadian disciplines.
For the fan of Canadian track and field, it's a nice problem to have, to see 4 athletes who are truly world class and to know that only 3 of them will get the opportunity to pull on that Canada kit. Current, Plord, and Stafford, of course, were the 3 on the team last year at the Olympics, but the return of Gabriella Debus-Stafford to world-class form almost automatically means that there's one less spot to fight for in both the 1500 and the 5,000. We briefly touched on it, but you mentioned she will be contesting the double. She's already run the standard in the 5,000 as well. 14:47 is what she ran earlier this year in Paris. So we look for her to make it back into the final in both of those events. Staying with the women's 5,000, that's another event where it is wide open right now. We've had past years where that team has been full. All 3 spots have been taken by Canadian female athletes. But right now, only Debus-Stafford with standard, and a little bit of a surprise to those who have followed the sport in past years and maybe know her more for her steeplechasing acumen, but Regan Yee currently holding on to the 42nd and final qualifying position in the women's 5K. It seems we're seeing a switch up and over in events from the steeplechase to the 5K for Regan this year.
Yeah, she told me at Canadian Indoors that she was a little over the steeplechase, that she was getting sick of it. I mean, I don't want to put disrespect on the event like that, John. Obviously, I know the steeplechase is very dear to your heart, but Regan said she was a little sick of it. So she has made the move to the 5K, and she's put up some decent performances this year. She had a good run at nationals, was able to get a few points there, and we will be going to the NACYAC Championships alongside Gracelyn Larkin in the 5,000 meter event to compete for Canada. So it'll be interesting. Again, I know she'll probably get a little bit more points there. She's probably going to need, again, sort of something close to a podium spot in order to really get her position in the 5K. She's shown great form, and I think I don't know how close, because I've never tried the steeplechase, but are the events a little bit similar, John?
I think that the fitness is going to transfer over quite well, and we've already seen that it has transferred over quite well. That said, it is, and this is, I think, one of the reasons that Regan, who is such a competitor, wanted to move to the 5,000. It is a deeper event globally, and I think she's learning that in a big way this year, simply by virtue of having run really well, but only being in 42nd place in the world rankings. As we mentioned, that 42nd and final qualifying spot. So if anything were to change, if a few more athletes run the standard, if a few more athletes jump her in the rankings with bonus points, she could find herself on the outside looking in. And I think that was one of the risks that came with moving to the event is, yes, the fitness is similar, but there's just more women globally running the 5,000 than there are running the steeplechase. And this weekend will be telling if she is able to squeeze a few extra points out of these NACYAC championships and firm up her qualifying position. Otherwise, it could be a heartbreakingly close call for her by virtue of having picked this event. Speaking of the women's steeplechase, an event where we've also seen, I think, a little bit of churn. We no longer have a trio of athletes in a qualifying position like we've been fortunate enough to have for many of the last years at the world stage. Only one athlete currently in a qualifying position from Canada. That is this year's Canadian champion, Grace Featherstone. She will be at the NACYAC Championships as well. She's currently ranked 30th in the world of the 36 potential spaces. Look for her to also boost her ranking with a good showing at NACYACs, but otherwise looking like a fairly firm lock to make that team, barring any major changes at NACYACs or in these last couple of weeks of the regular season. Moving over to the men's steeplechase, again, an event where we've seen a departure of some of the stalwarts of the program for the last number of years, and it really is Jean-Simon Degagnier's event to rule in this country. He's coming off of his third consecutive national title last week in Ottawa. He, of course, has the standard. 8:15 was standard. He's run 8:14.4 this year. And has a history of showing up at these big meets. A reigning Olympic finalist, reigning World Championship finalist, where he ran to that stunning 8th place in a huge personal best at the time 2 years ago in Budapest. So look for JSD to not only be returning to the world stage, but we've seen time and again that he and coach Felix Lapointe seem to get things right when it matters and time their taper and their peak perfectly for these world championships.
Yeah, no, he's a gamer, and it seems like, again, we've seen it at the previous World Championships, the previous Olympic Games, that he really rises to the occasion. So I think JS has his eyes on the final, and he's been he's set his previous bests at major championship meets. So I think we'll see him rise to the occasion in Tokyo and run another fast time.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that leaves us with just 3 events left to talk about in terms of Canadians in qualifying positions or close to qualifying positions. Those are the men's middle distance events, 800, 1500, and 5000. Marley, let's start with what has been, I think, the one that we're spending the most time using our calculators on in the last couple of days. Just so many moving pieces since those Canadian championships. That's the men's 1500 meter. Set the stage of what's going on in that event right now.
Yeah, I mean, it got really complicated last week when Foster Malik, a young Canadian star from Kitchener, ran the second fastest Canadian time in history, 3:32 on home soil in Montreal, which was crazy to see. But I think, one of the biggest stories coming out of nationals was the rising star of University of Guelph's Max Davies. I mean, he beat an entire pro field. It was a tactical race, but he was able to close the final lap in 50 seconds, which, is an unbelievable split for a 1500 meter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how slow the race was, just that closing speed is totally world class.
Next level. I mean, to see him beat, guys like Kieran Lum, to see him beat, guys like Charles or Jean Simon, who are, world class athletes of their own. I think, a lot of people got excited to see what he's capable of do. Max is currently in a bit of a tricky scenario, and this is just kind of the way the rankings work. That, although he's run some decent times this year, the places he's run these races have been smaller meets. Mm-hmm. So he's not been able to get, this sort of eligible place score points on top of the times that he's been running to get enough points to put him up in the rankings. So he's currently heading to Europe to do sort of 2 or 3 races before the deadline. And I think this whole experience for Max will be not only eye-opening, but I think he's excited to be a part of it, and just be in sort of the quota and have a chance at making his world championship dream come true.
Yeah, absolutely. Already such a breakout season for him, of course, running the new under 23 national record 3:35.0, breaking a mark that had stood for 33 years, a full 12 years before he was even born. And so he has already had such a successful season. We'll be chatting with him on this episode, so if you haven't listened to that, make sure you stay tuned. Check out our conversation with Max Davies this week. Tough to move past the event without first mentioning what was a bit of an upset at that national championship. Kieran Lum, the 2-time reigning champion, falling to 3rd place at the national championships and potentially seeing the start of a new era. Marley, could this be the beginning of Lum's move up in distance to the 5,000 meter? We saw him get bested by 2 young guns in Foster Malik and Max Davies, even though he himself ran a 52-second last lap to close that 1500. But a couple days earlier in the 5,000, that 52 was enough to run away from some of the best 5,000 talent this country's ever seen. So what's your feeling? Could this be when we see Lum make the shift from a 15.5 guy to a 5.15 guy?
My name is not Jurt Ingebrigtsen, and I'm not his coach. But if I was his coach, I would say, Kieran, you should focus on the 5. I think aerobically and kind of playing to his strengths, that the 5K is a little bit more suited for him, especially with the uh, kind of format that the 5Ks run at the championship level now, where it's,
Hmm.
pretty much 8 or so tactical laps and then kind of a roundup final mile, which really suits kind of Kieran's racing style.
Yeah.
But the 15 is his baby, and he is still the focus for him, and that's something he is focused on for these upcoming World Championships. He does sit inside the quota, and he just came off a win in Belgium, where he ran 3:34 this past weekend, which will pretty much shoot him up the rankings pretty good. So I think his spot on the team should be solidified with that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see the move he makes after these World Championships, and I think definitely the 5K is his strength and definitely plays towards the sort of training he's doing. But I think it'll be interesting to see also what he does in at the World Championships in the 15. I think he left Paris with a little bit of a sour taste in his mouth, wanting more. And he knew his fitness was at a certain place, and I feel like he just wasn't able to perform to the standard that he thought his fitness was at. So I think he's kind of looking for redemption in that sort of case, and that's what he's going to Tokyo for, and why he wants to challenge himself over the 15 once again. But long term, I do think in the back of his head he knows his place is in the 5.
Talking about redemption and in the context of Tokyo, I think it's a beautiful segue to talk about someone who it feels so good to be chatting about in the context of hunting a world championship qualifier again. And that's none other than Justin Knight. Of course, the sixth placer at the 2021 Olympic Games in the 5,000 event, the second fastest man in Canadian history over that distance. And yet, we haven't seen anything from Knight since that 2021 season. He sustained a pretty severe Achilles tear in that Olympic final, still gutted it out to a sixth place finish, but was totally off of racing until just earlier this year. And we were just starting to see the glimmers of that generational talent that was Justin Knight reemerge. He was third at the national championships behind Kieran Lum in the 5,000. And just a few days ago in Belgium, ran the second fastest time of his career. So Marley, is it safe to say that Justin Knight is back?
Justin Knight is he's back, but not back. Like he's back. He's back to being confident.
Yeah.
I think he still has a little bit of steps to go before we see the Justin Knight that we saw in 2021. And I know it's hard not to get excited because not only is he the nicest guy ever, but I think he's a little bit from being on sort of that national team, and it's gonna be tight to see if he can get inside the quota for these World Championships or not. He's currently in Europe, living out of the Netherlands, pretty much trying to race any 5,000 meter that pops up. He had a great race in Belgium the other day where he ran 13:03. Just 2 seconds shy of that world standard mark of 13:01 that he needed. And I think at this point, he's either going to need to win a race in 13:02 or he's going to have to run the standard.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no better way to do that. And I don't know, again, I don't know what this is going to come down to, but if he's able to get himself into the Lausanne Diamond League on August 19th,
Mm-hmm.
where there's a world-class 5K field with guys like Grant Fisher. If he's able to get himself in that field and just hang on for dear life, I think we might see him run like a 12:55 and like just get in by a hair with the
Mm-hmm.
standard, obviously. But that'd be awesome. I mean, there'd be no better story in Canadian track and field than the Justin Knight comeback to the world stage. I mean, I feel like at this point they got to write a movie about it.
Yeah, and to do it at the site of his last global championship, returning to that Tokyo Olympic Stadium where he competed with the very best of the world 4 full years ago, feels a little bit poetic. And on that poetic note, that wraps up our rundown of all of the athletes currently in or seeking qualifying positions for these upcoming World Championships. Those, of course, begin in exactly 1 month's time in Tokyo, Japan. Marley, thank you so much for lending your expertise. You've had your finger to the pulse of Canadian track and field this whole season. Thanks for adding your insights, and we wish all the best of luck to all of those athletes still hunting down that standard, whether it be at the NACAC championships this weekend or as they look for those last chance opportunities abroad.
No, thank you for having me on, John. I always appreciate your time.
Yeah, it's always a blast to catch up and talk shop with you.
I did kind of like the feeling of being a little bit of like no one really knew where my fitness was at, and I kind of liked it, but I just didn't really try to think about it too much. Like I'm really thankful that I have gone to race some of these guys I've wanted to race and look up to, and it's really cool for me. And now I'm there, I'm racing you guys now. I'm running as fast as you guys. It's a really surreal feeling, and it's super fun to compete against them as well. Like I had so much fun at nationals. I think I did kind of carry that dark horse like a little bit, but I tried not to let it get to me. I'm just saying I'm here. Every race I'm in, I'm just going to try and win. And if I don't, I don't. If I do, I do.
If you're a fan of Canadian track and field that didn't know the name Max Davies a month ago, you certainly know his name now. After turning heads at the U20 level in 2022, injury-shortened seasons in 23 and 24 halted the momentum of the now 21-year-old University of Guelph athlete. This year, healthy and hungry, he's making up for lost time. At last month's Harry Jerome Track Classic in BC, his 3:35.04 clocking in the 1500 was not only a nearly 3-second personal best, but also a new Canadian U23 record at the distance, taking down the mark set by Graham Hood, which had stood for 33 years. As if the Canadian age group record wasn't enough, Davies put the established order of Canadian middle distance running on notice, with an electrifying performance at the Canadian National Championships in Ottawa just last weekend, unleashing a blistering 50-second final lap to run away from a field including multiple Canadian Olympians and secure a win and his first senior national title. Fresh off his Canadian Championship win, and still very much in the hunt for a qualifying spot to the upcoming World Championships next month in Tokyo, Max joins the show to discuss the build-up to his breakthrough season, his signature kick, and what it's meant to ascend to the top of Canadian middle distance running. Max Davies, we've been meaning to have you on for a long time. You gave us a pretty great reason to do so. Congratulations on an awesome season so far and on your first senior national title.
Thank you very much. I'm super happy with it, obviously, and also very excited to be on this podcast. I've been following it, so very excited and happy to be here. So thank you for inviting me on.
I've had my eye on you all season. You've been winning races left, right, and center. But I want to start with some pretty recent history. Just last weekend in Ottawa, senior men's national champion in the 1500 meter. Like I mentioned, I've been keeping a track of your races all season long, and you've started to develop a little bit of a tell, and that is your signature kick. I think anybody who's raced you now knows that if you're anywhere within sniffing distance in the last 400 meters, they better watch their back. And that was certainly on full display this past weekend in Ottawa. 50.2 seconds for the last 400. That's a quicker 400 than I've ever run in my life. Flying start from the blocks, doesn't matter. I mean, that is smoking fast. So first question for you, was this tactical sit and kick race what you were hoping for going into the national championships this year?
I think I don't know, a lot of people I think thought it was. I knew that if it was tactical, I would have a pretty good shot at the title, but I also was preparing myself for it to be fast. I think in my head going into the race, I was like, okay, this is going to be quick. I don't see it going very slow. Just with the people in the race, I thought that it was going to be not like a tactical 3:37, 3:38 race, not us going through the first 800 in 2:26 or whatever we did.
Yeah.
But I was honestly getting prepared for a fast race, mostly because I was fairly confident in myself. I timed the taper right. I felt really good, and I was I also to get just a good time on the board with the amount of bonus points. I did actually want it to be quick.
Yeah.
But again, it's very tough to rely on that in championship racing, and also seeing in the past of the Canadian championships, it has recently never been too quick.
Mm-hmm.
So I was I knew when it was slow, I'm okay, I'm going to capitalize off this. And again, no one wants to lead. No one really wants to take the lead. So I could have done it, but I didn't want to. And I know the other guys are probably thinking the same. But yeah, no, I actually wanted it to be a little quicker, just mostly for the points and to get my world rankings a little bit higher. But again, like it being slow, I knew if I was there with Bell Lap, I would have done well. So I was
Yeah.
pretty happy about that.
You mentioned those world rankings, and that's something that we're going to spend some time on later in the conversation. But I want to pause for a beat on something that stood out to me from what you just said. You said, I was expecting it to be a kind of tactical 336, 337 race. Now, Max Davies 2 months ago wasn't even a 337 guy. Your PB wasn't even that quick. And I love just the subtle confidence that comes through there of the way that you've leveled up in these last couple of months. And we're going to talk more about your new U23 national record. But you're now looking at the sport from a different perspective, where times that would have been a lifetime best even 6 weeks ago are now in that kind of tactical sit and kick style of race in your mind. Tell us about how you've changed your perspective in the last couple of months to get onto this level where you're no longer just happy to be on the starting line with Olympians like Kieran Lum or Charles Philibert Thibodeau or Jean-Simon de Gagné in that final, but to be showing up and believing, hey, these are the guys that I deserve to be competing against, and these are guys that I believe I can contend with on any given day, and as you proved last Saturday and Sunday, actually beat head to head. What's your mindset been like? How's it shifted over the past 6 or 8 weeks?
Yeah, so definitely shifted a lot. I think obviously I've had my fair share of injuries and never really got to show what I think I was capable of coming off of my indoor seasons in like the U sports scene. And it is kind of tough to run quick on these like some of these tracks in Canada, as you know, like with the flat tracks, it can be tough, and especially we don't go down to the States too often. Like we have a couple shots to run fast, and sometimes you build up a lot of pressure. Like I have to run fast at Boston today because it's like the only time I'm gonna go, and I think I never really got to show that being hurt like in 2023 summer and 2024 summer. So I never really got to show it. I did run 339 last year, and I was happy with it, and then I got hurt, so I couldn't really show what more I was capable of because it felt really good. Like I was like, okay, like this is what 339 feels like I can go faster.
Yeah.
So I knew going into the season that I was going to drop my time by quite a lot, just from how training's been going and the workouts I've been doing. I was fairly confident that I'm going to run something quick this year. But yeah, like it was at a different, like at some of the the early season meets, like I raced in the States a couple times. I raced at Drake Relays. I raced at Hoka Festival of Miles. Kind of tactical races, but super fun experiences, and like running with names like big like US guys. And I'm like, oh, this is so much fun, and I'm kicking down a lot of them. And again, I feel like some of the early season races do tend to be a little tactical because people aren't too worried about time then. And as the season progresses, people start to really like, okay, we got to get these times in. And then I raced at the Inferno, the Royal City Inferno in Guelph, my home track. So I'm like super excited. I've never like I only had raced it once. And I was so excited because like I love the track and the atmosphere is great. And I ran 337. I was like, oh, that felt pretty good. Like that didn't feel as bad as I thought. If this is what 337 feels like, what's 336 going to feel like? What's 335 going to feel like? And then I had the mile at the Bob Biggers Classic in London, where it was a very hot day, but ended up PBing with a 355. I'm like, oh wow, like. And it like if I can run this, and like it was like 30 something degrees,
wow,
like 30, 35 degrees.
Not
it was
ideal.
so hot, but super fun. And I was like, man, I just like I feel like I got to taste each race of like this is what it feels like, and I know I can go faster. And then at Jerome, I don't know, I was just ready to run. I didn't even look at the clock. I had a pretty poor start, kind of got out in the back, and in the race, I knew that like Nathan Green was going to be the guy to follow, and like, I know. Obviously, I actually raced him. And
you guys go all the way back to World Junior Championships in 2022. That's the recent NCAA champion from the University of Washington, Nathan Green. And tell us more about that Harry Jerome race. That, of course, is where you set the new national U23 record just under a month ago. That's out in Burnaby at the Harry Jerome Classic, 3:35:04. Breaking a record that has stood for over 12 years before you were even born, 33 years, a legend of the sport, Graham Hood. About time that record dropped. So take us through, it sounds like everything really was building towards that, both physically and in your confidence. What made that night so special?
I don't know. I think the way the race was, it felt so smooth, and the night was great, and the track was fast. People were running fast that day, and when the track's hot, like, good things always happen.
Gotta capitalize.
When you see other people running well, then this makes you want to run well. I got out pretty bad, and me and Nathan actually kind of got stuck at the back, and I knew that he was going to be the guy to follow, just seeing how well his NCAA career was, and
Mm-hmm.
he's like the two-time NCAA 50 meter champ. Like you got to take. He's a really good runner, and I was
Absolutely.
like, okay, I'm gonna track him, and that's basically what I did, and then we kind of slowly made our way up the field, and with about 200 meters to go, we found ourselves at the front, and I'm like, he's making his move. I felt good. I'm gonna make my move at the same time. I didn't even look at the clock because I knew we went through slow, and I honestly was just kind of like, okay, whatever the time is, I'm just gonna try and race and just race to win, which is what I've been doing in pretty much every single race I've been in.
Yeah.
Is as long as I race to win, the good times will come because I find you can put too much pressure on like the time, and I know what that's like. If you're chasing points,
Yeah, you're
you
pressing
gotta
hard.
think about that. But in a lot of my best races, I've just thought about I'm just gonna try and win, and the good time will hopefully come.
Yeah.
And I crossed the line. I thought I ran 3:34, but I don't know 3:35:04. I'm like, oh, but I was still super happy. Everything worked out well, and I saw him make a move, and I tried to go around on like kind of coming off the corner, and ended up running side by side with him. And obviously, his kick is really good as well. So I knew it was going to be tough, but it was such a cool experience, just kind of be like really battling down the line. And I saw the time, and I was like, whoa, like I can't believe I didn't think that was going to happen because we went through the 800 in like 1:58,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, the pace is off. But so I just kind of I really just just locked in on just trying to win, and the time ended up being really good, and I was like super happy with it. And yeah, just it was a really great night, and obviously to get my first Canadian record was super great, and being my last year as a U23 because I have a later birthday, so
Yeah,
my
December.
so my even next year I won't be a U23 anymore. So I wanted to get something out of the U23, my last year as U23. So super
Yeah.
happy, and the stars aligned that night. And
They've really been aligning for you this year. I want to take some time to go back to you mentioned having dealt with injuries the last couple of years. Tell us a little bit more about the injuries that you dealt with and what it's taken to get healthy this year in 2025 to finally have the opportunity to run a complete outdoor season. Most people would be surprised to learn that this was your first time actually competing at a senior Canadian national championship outdoors because you've been injured the last 2 seasons. And even going back before that, you were a junior, and so you never had the opportunity. So to come out and not only compete and make the final, but to win your first senior national title at really your first kick at that can is something special. So I want to know a little bit more about, first of all, how you dealt with those injuries and how you've come out of them stronger and how you've built this confidence coming out of a couple of pretty tough years to emerge and really transcend onto a new level within Canadian middle distance running.
yeah, so in 2023 I had a lot of problems with my IT band, and I was getting a lot of pain in my knee because you can either have like IT band pain, like pain in the hip or the knee, and mine ended up being in the knee. And just like I don't really know what caused it yet. It could be a mix of I wasn't sleeping right, wasn't eating right. There's all these little things that go into an injury, and that was my first like major injury, like especially in an important season. I couldn't run for 10 weeks. I was so disappointed because I really wanted to just have a season
Yeah.
outdoors and prove myself, especially after the summer, like after making U20 Worlds and my
Mm-hmm.
first year being a senior. I just wanted to just kind of prove that I'm still here, and like I had a really rocky indoor season just with a lot of inconsistency and the mental side of things. I've learned a lot kind of each year. I keep learning. And
Yeah.
then the next summer kind of finally broke through in 2024. I broke 4 in the mile for the first time, which
Mm-hmm.
is like obviously it's such a good feeling just to do
It's
it finally. And like it's the one goal that like everyone knows,
it
you know what I mean?
transcends the sport. It's something that you can tell
Yeah.
anybody whether they're a runner or not, and it gives them some idea of the level of talent that
Yeah.
you're operating at for sure. It's
So
a
I
huge
was
bucket list.
so super happy with that, and just had a breakthrough. U Sports went so well,
Yeah, triple
and
gold, your
triple
first
gold.
of,
My first time, yeah.
which you
So
repeated again this year, of course, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. But yeah, continue with the
but yeah,
2024 because then it did go sideways shortly
did.
after that U Sports and the
So
early track season outdoors
so I ran in sound running in outdoor
Mhm.
season. I was
in
super
Los
fit
Angeles.
in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember being there and watching you kick away in the
I
beat
do
heat.
remember you being there.
And
Yes.
I mean, at the time it was wow, he is on another level. really proven that you jumped another couple rungs of the ladder. But of course, then things went sideways. So tell us a little bit more about that and how you've managed that since, because you went from having all this wind in your sails to being sidelined.
Yeah, I don't know. I got home from LA into Guelph and I was on a long run with my teammates. Like not even like we weren't doing a workout, just an easy long run. And I just felt like a pop in my foot. And I was like, oh my God, this really hurts. And I ran the rest of the way home. We weren't that far, but still, like I was in quite a lot of pain, and I'm like, okay, like maybe it's just a tweak, maybe something's happened. But then the next day, I tried to run. I'm like, I can't run. I didn't know exactly what it was, but it was just my foot on the top of my foot was just really, really painful, and I kept saying treatment and trying to like piece a season together. But it got to the point where like I'm gonna do more damage, and I got an MRI, ended up being a stress fracture on my third metatarsal. So thank God I didn't keep going because I might have actually like broken my foot if I kept. I was gonna race. I was actually gonna go to Harry Jerome and just send it on like just like try and find something. Because the thing with stress fractures, I feel like sometimes they hurt really really bad for like that first week, and they start to like get better quickly, but they're not actually healed. The pain
but you
will
start
go
thinking,
away.
oh, maybe I could spike up, and 3.5 minutes of work won't do too much damage to me. But it's tough to have the patience and the foresight to know that no, let it heal fully so that you can have a full healthy season like you've had this year.
Yes, and thank God I didn't run because I probably would have broken it, and then I honestly might have not had a season this year if that happened. So yeah, but each year I've learned lots of lessons, and I've looked at what I've been doing and seeing if there's anything I can change. Maybe I could be recovering better. Like I'm not eating the wrong things, I'm sleeping fine, but it's like the fine details. Like
Totally.
maybe I could be sleeping better. Maybe I could be recovering a little better. Maybe I should increase the amount I'm eating. That's one thing with like a lot of stress fractures is a lot of people don't realize. You may think you're eating enough, but you might actually not be. And when you're trying to train at a level that we do, you have to eat a lot. And that
Absolutely.
I think that might have been what it was. Maybe I wasn't sleeping right. It could be, what you're eating, how you're sleeping. There's something, I just looked at everything and just tried to improve everything I could.
Yeah.
I started sleeping better. I started eating better. I started going to get my blood work done, looking if my levels were right, looking at like the supplements I was taking, just trying to find everything I could to increase the chance of me having a season. And just trying to run the best. But I've learned, I think like I'm not upset that I've had these injuries. I think obviously I really do wish I did have those 2 seasons, but I did learn a lot of lessons from them, and I know my body so much more now, and I really understand what I'm doing, and I know when I'm not recovered. I know when I need to take a break, and that's something that does take time to learn. And I think maybe I was just immature when I was younger, and I didn't want to stop. And that everyone knows that feeling. You don't want to stop, but sometimes your body is telling you to, and you need to listen to it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I've just learned so many lessons, and have just tried to improve everything I can. It's all about recovery, and the workouts have been going so much better. I've been recovering faster from workouts, and I'm able to train harder, but also recover faster. So it's been just so much better, and obviously it's all
paying
coming
dividends.
down. It's paying dividends finally, and it worked, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They're lessons that every runner is going to learn at some point, and in some ways, probably fortunate timing that you learn them relatively young, and to hopefully get those injury woes out of the way and know what your body needs in order to perform at its best. And you've gotten it right this year in a big way. Let's go back to March, when I think we first got put on notice of what might be in the cards for Max Davies in 2025. Triple U Sports champion, athlete of the meet at the Canadian University Championships, and just dominant wins across the board, 1,500, 1,000 meter, anchoring the 4x8. Is that when you started to think, hey, this might be the year when I break through and I'm competing with the best guys? Or was there an element competing at the university level, like you mentioned earlier in the conversation, not getting a whole lot of opportunities to compete outside of the university system, outside of Ontario? A lot of your racing was on slow indoor tracks. It sounds like you must have known the type of shape that you were in, but was there ever a feeling of being a little bit of a dark horse coming into this season because you haven't raced against the top guys in the country or in North America due to all of those injury problems? Did you wear that at all? Was that on your mind going into this year? Was, hey, people might be sleeping on me, but I know what I'm capable of?
I think in March, like the whole goal is just to repeat of what I did last year. I wasn't too worried about time or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the 1K, I actually was trying to get the U23 record.
Which you ended up tying your record, did you not?
I
Down
yeah,
to
I
the hundredth
like
of a
literally to the
second.
100th. I tied what I ran last year, and it was on the same track too. So I think I've maxed out that track. I'm like trying to run like faster on it. I do love that. I do love that Windsor track. It does hold a special place in my heart because of just the races I've
Tough for
had
it
there.
not
And
to after
yeah.
6 gold medals in 2 seasons.
But yeah, like I think coming into the season, I didn't know I was fit just from the workouts I'd done. I knew this outdoor season was going to go well if I stayed healthy. Um, and yeah, I think after U Sports, I was ready to go. I wanted the outdoor season to start. I did kind of like the feeling of being a little bit of like no one really knew where my fitness was at,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of liked it. But I just didn't really try to think about it too much. Like I'm really thankful that I have gone to race some of these guys and
Yeah.
like guys I've wanted to race and look up to, and I like it's really cool for me. And like now I'm there. I'm like, well, I'm racing you guys now, and
Yeah.
I'm running as fast as you guys, and it's like
Yeah.
it's a really surreal feeling, and it's super fun to compete against them as well. Like I had so much fun at nationals, and like just, but I think I did kind of carry that dark horse like a little bit, but I tried not to let it like get to me. I'm just saying I'm here. I'm just gonna every race I'm in, I'm just gonna try and win, and if I don't, I don't. If I do, I do. So like.
And was the U23 national record something that was on your mind? Is it a record that you knew about going into the season that you were targeting? What were kind of the goals coming into this season, and have they shifted at all now that you've accomplished so much? Were these big goals ones that you've had circled all year long, or have they developed organically as you've just progressed from race to race and realized, hey, I can't compete against anybody that I'm lining up with on any given day?
Winning nationals has been a goal of mine for
Okay.
like years. So that's I remember last year in 2024
Mm-hmm.
before I got hurt, I was sitting with my dad, and we're watching the race from like nationals 2023. So
Mm-hmm.
it was on YouTube, and I was like, I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win this year. And I told him I like said, Dad, I'm gonna win this year. And obviously I got hurt, and like that it was my goal last year to win
Okay.
nationals, and I hadn't even run like 339 yet, and I just
Mm-hmm.
said I'm gonna win.
Love
And
that confidence.
yeah, and then this year obviously I got hurt, but it was always the goal. I've said it, like I told everyone, I told all my teammates, I told my family, I told my friends, like I told my coaches, like I told like my coach Terry Radchenko, I said, Terry, I'm winning this year, and he said, let's do it. He said, we're gonna do it, and we're gonna get there. And I did. And I just like I can't believe it. It's super surreal. Like this goal I've had ever since I was a kid. Like I wanted to be a national champion.
Yeah.
And I'm finally am that. And it's just such a great feeling. But I've had this goal for many years, and it was a weird race, obviously with how tactical it was, but that's championship racing
Yeah, a
sometimes.
win is a
And
win.
a
And
win is a win,
uh,
and yeah.
you've
I proved
added
it. So
Yeah,
I
you've
said
added the fast times to it as well.
yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about those fast times because you're now in the territory of looking at senior world championships and qualifying for your first senior national team. You're on the outside looking in right now in terms of world ranking. That 335 that you ran, again, just under a month ago at the Harry Jerome has certainly put you in the conversation. The standard for our listeners, 333.00 is the automatic qualifier for the Tokyo World Championships. Is that something that you're targeting as you look ahead to these last couple of weeks of the qualifying window? Tokyo now about 6 weeks away. What's the rest of the season look like for you? Is that something that you're gunning for?
100%. I want to go so bad, and I know that there's no worlds next year,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm just gonna take a shot at it this year. And I think after the 335 is when I was really like, okay, I'm gonna go for it. Like
Yeah.
I have to. Like I know I'm 2 seconds off standard pretty much, and like I've proven that I can PB by a couple seconds, and
Yeah.
I'm like, what's 2 more seconds? Like I know it's gonna be hard, and but that's the whole point. I remember talking to my coach about this, and I was like, the fact that we're even having this conversation is a good thing. Even if I
Totally.
don't end up going, the fact that where I've come from and the fact that I'm even talking about qualifying for worlds, like even attempting the standard is something that I didn't think I'd be able to achieve this season. And I'm really like I always wanted to make a world scene. That's always been a goal as well. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
been a dream of mine to represent Canada on like the senior level on the biggest stage. And but like very much after the 335, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go for it. I've been chasing the points
Mm-hmm.
like everybody has been, and it's going okay. Harry Jerome helps, and I also ran it La Classique in Quebec City in the 353 mile,
Mm-hmm.
and you're allowed 2 miles.
Yes.
It's the average of your top 5 times. It's the points you get, but you're allowed 2 off distances where a mile counts as the off
And
distance.
that
So
win in Quebec City, another dominant win a couple days before nationals. Again, probably when we first started thinking, oh, this guy might be the favorite going into these national championships. Just a couple of days ago, we're talking now a few days after the national championships. So just a couple of days ago, you were on the track again, this time in Montreal at the Montreal Classique, where you ran 3:36 in a race that your friend and fellow Canadian, fresh out of the university system, Foster Malik, did hit that standard, and you two battled it out for the first 1,300 meters of that race. You did a lot of work to make that race happen, and I know you've stated, we talked a little bit off air, that the outcome a little bit disappointing, obviously, when you're taking big swings, going for standard. You came up a bit short that time, running 3:36, but how much value has there been in just putting yourself in those races where you're swinging for the fences, and you made it about 1,350 meters before you kind of cracked and the monkey jumped on your back, but you play that race again another time and maybe you make it all the way to 1,500 meters. So does it feel like that time is there and it's just a matter of not if but when?
So I think with that race, it was a very last minute decision. Like I was talking to Foster after nationals, like do you want to go and try get standard? And also huge congrats to Foster.
For a phenomenal second
amazing
fastest
run.
time in Canadian history. Really part of the new guard, both of you coming up. And
that was an amazing run from him. I'm super happy for him, and obviously like achieved a dream of his. I'm sure he's had since he was little. So no, I'm super happy for him, and yeah, congrats Foster for getting the standard. Obviously that was my goal as well going in, and me and Foster had talked like at nationals, like, hey, do you want to go and do an attempt where we got pacers paced perfectly. They the pacers were amazing, and yeah, I just went for it. I went right on the pacers, and I'm like, I got to take a swing, and I'm gonna go for it, even though the time I don't think reflected on what I wanted, but I'm very proud of myself for really like taking a swing, and we were on pace through 1,300 meters, and as every runner knows, sometimes your legs don't have it. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, and I just hit a wall. And the lactic hits, and like it happens. It's part of.
And you don't know running, until you get to that point in the race.
So you have to try, and and even with the performance not being what I wanted, it still does help my like rankings. So I'm very happy because it's still a 3:36.0, and I get bonus points. So
I
it's
had
like
the calculator
12-10.
out myself. Looking, I think it gives you another 16 points on the hunt towards that qualifying quota. So there's still a chance. And like you say, you're so young that just being in the conversation for a spot at the World Championships in an era of 1,500 meter running, not only in this country but globally, that is unlike any that we've ever seen before, has got to feel pretty special. So what does amazing, the next couple of weeks look like as you keep taking these final swings and hopefully try and book your ticket to Tokyo?
So after Montreal, I was pretty bummed out, and I just was like a little, like, what am I gonna do? I don't know when I'm gonna do it. I don't know how I'm gonna do it. Like, how am I gonna get the standard? And I was talking to one of my coaches at Guelph, and he called me and he said, look, like, I think you should go to Europe. Everyone knows you go to Europe. Like everyone just runs fast out there. I don't know what they got in the air, but they just like you enter these meets and there's like 10 3:32 guys in it. You're like, who are these guys? But like there's all amazing runners, and like I think he said, look, we'll help you go. Big thanks to the University of Guelph. Like the amount of support I've gotten from them is just unbelievable. Fantastic. Like I would not be where I am without the school and all the support system I have there. So I just want to do a big thanks to them, because without them I wouldn't be where I am. But he said, I think you should go to Europe. Like, even if you don't get the standard, he said, when you're sitting on the couch watching Worlds in September, the feeling, like knowing that you could have given it another shot. Like I have like till the 24th.
Yeah.
Why not just try and go till the very last day? It's not much time. So what's the point of giving up now? And I was like, you know what? Like I'd be very disappointed in myself, even if I don't make it. I'd feel a lot better about myself knowing that I tried my best
Absolutely.
and instead of just giving up early. So I'm going to go to Europe. We're looking for races, looking for last minute flights. I do have some help with it, which is great because it is going to be an expensive trip. But I'm going to go to Europe, and I may race in Belgium
Okay.
on the 16th. There's a race there, and then I might go to Norway. There's like a race being set up. It's literally like a last chance meet. Like I think it's called that. So they're setting up a meet in Norway for the 1500. They're going to try find pacers, and there's a lot of guys in Europe who are in the exact same boat as me.
Yep.
So there's a lot of people who have the same goals, and that's what I want. I want to be in a race with people who have the same goal as me, so we can all get the standard, right? So it's
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I think I
Iron
have it
sharpens
in my
iron.
legs. Yep, I think I have it in my legs, so I'm going to do that. And last chance, right? Like I may as well go, and regardless of how it goes, I'm going to be proud of myself that I tried my best. So I'm going to go to Europe and try to get 2 races in. If I get standard on the first one, I'm just going to come back home.
Yeah.
So
Get in a block before Worlds.
yeah, I'm very tired from like now being like I did like 5 races in 4 weeks. I got 2 more coming up. Like, well, that's what you got to do when you're in my position. So.
Totally. And you got to take a moment to be grateful for the help that's allowed you to be racing with that frequency at this high level. Everything you're describing, I can't help but smiling because it's giving me big flashbacks to my first real pursuit of my first senior Worlds team. Week after Canadian Nationals, booked a last-minute flight to Belgium, incidentally, and took a big swing. Ended up dipping under the steeplechase standard by .02, and booked my ticket. So
and there you go.
You're borrowing from a script that I know from personal experience can work, and we wish you all the best of luck with it, Max. It's been such a joy to watch you this season as you've elevated to really the top spot in the 1500 in this country, and we're looking forward to cheering you on over these last couple of weeks, pushing for standard and hopefully onwards after that to the World Championships in Tokyo. So thanks so much for taking the time. Rest up, stay healthy, and go take some more big swings.
I will, and thank you for having me on the podcast. It's been super fun.
Another huge thanks to Max for contributing to this week's episode. He's in action this weekend at the Meeting Vorman in Leuven, Belgium, where he'll look to hit the 3:33.00 qualifying standard in the 1500 for the upcoming World Championships in Tokyo. With a bright future in the sport ahead, make sure to give him a follow on Instagram at Max Davies09 to keep up with his continuing rise through the ranks of middle distance running. A host of other top Canadian athletes are also in action this weekend at the NACAC Championships in the Bahamas, looking to book their own place on the Canadian team heading to Tokyo. Marley and the team at Canadian Running will be covering all the action, so make sure you check out runningmagazine.ca and at Canadian Running on Instagram for all your running news. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Shakeout Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts to make sure you never miss an episode. I'm your host, John Gay, saying thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time for your next Shakeout.